Hello everyone and welcome back to this YouTube channel. This is going to be the second episode of our list show where basically we just rank things. Because every YouTube channel has to have a series of shows where they rank things. It's the law. It's the internet law. They sent that to me when I opened up the YouTube channel, so I have to do it. I'm contractually obligated. So today I am going to do something horror, unlike last time. As you can see behind me, maybe you see these framed photos here. Starting over here behind that Scream mask, I have every one of the guys who have played Jason Voorhees in the Friday the 13th series autograph in one of those frames. A different person for each frame, obviously. So today, miraculously enough, there are 12 films dealing with Jason Voorhees, and I'm going to rank them 12 to 1. And with me today for moral support, I have my little plush Jason guy. I won him at Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights. Throwing a basketball into a hoop. Easiest Jason I've ever won. So let's get to the list. Coming in at number 12, this should be a surprise to no one who's ever seen all 12 of these films. It is the 9th entry into the franchise, Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, from when New Line Cinema got a hold of the rights to Jason Voorhees and did their best to make really crappy movies starring Jason Voorhees. This movie, instead of having a giant guy in a hockey mask killing teenagers who are having sex in the woods, we have a demonic slug who goes around possessing people, and apparently that slug is Jason Voorhees, and there's a magic dagger, and his closest living relative has to be involved somehow. The only thing saving this movie from utter destruction is a really cool kill scene in the tent where two kids are actually having sex, and he basically just slices a girl in half. She's doing what the kids call cowgirl position. So that's a cool kill. It is one of the best kills in the series, honestly, but the rest of the movie is total trash. And this was supposed to set up a Freddy vs. Jason movie from back in the 90s, but since this movie sucked so bad, no one liked it, that got trashed, and we didn't see Freddy vs. Jason for another decade. Coming at number 11, Jason Takes Manhattan. This film suffers from the egos of filmmakers who always think that any film that doesn't take place in either LA or New York is an inferior film. Eventually, all of these horror franchises end up in LA or New York somehow because that's where these people are making the movies, and they think, well, everybody wants to be here. This is where all the action's at. No, we need Jason in some freaking woods killing some teenagers. For the majority of this movie, he's not even in New York. He's on a boat, killing teenagers on a cruise boat. That's what we were all jonesing for in the 80s. Jason taking a cruise. This movie sucks. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Taking Manhattan can't be that hard if the Muppets did it before Jason did it. We don't need Jason on the streets of New York. Coming in at number 10 to round out our New Line Cinema movies, Jason X, Jason in Space. You see, New Line, they wanted Jason everywhere but where he belongs, in the woods. Instead, Jason is now in space, killing people on a spaceship. How exciting. I will say this, at least they tried to keep some continuity with Earth having been frozen over or something, or having frozen Jason, and then they went down and got the specimen and unfroze him, stupidly for them. And it was fun watching Melissa Aid crawl around the spaceship, but we don't need Jason in space, we don't need Jason in New York, we don't need Jason as a slug. We just need Jason in the woods killing teenagers that like to get naked. It's a very simple formula. Coming at number 9, the 2009 reboot. Now, this isn't as terrible a film as the other three I've just mentioned. Jason's in the woods, and he's killing teenagers that are getting naked. The best pair of are in this film, so it's got that going for it. But I could do without conniving Jason. Like, I don't need Jason running at full speed or setting traps. I know they were trying to go for a different version of Jason. They wanted to build a whole new franchise, pretty much just because everyone else was doing it. It's an okay film. It's just not as good as everything else on this list. Hence, it's number 9. And at number 8, Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, or as fans call it, Carrie versus Jason. The main character uses telekinetic powers to raise Jason from the dead, from Crystal Lake, And generally, that's how she also defeats him after he kills all of her friends. Though most of the movie is what we want out of a Friday the 13th film, just Jason in the woods killing teenagers, there is a sort of a tone difference in this film, and you can kind of see where the franchise is making a turn. Because now we have this telekinetic girl with powers fighting Jason. But the kills are decent, and this would probably be a mid to one of the better films in a different slasher franchise. Coming at number 7, and this might be where my list might veer off from some other people's lists, but it's the original Friday the 13th. And I know this is the original film. People love it. I love it. Compared to the other films, it's just not as good. The killer, spoiler alert for a movie that's over 40 years old at this point, for one, is not Jason Voorhees, but that's fine. But the killer isn't even in the movie the entire flick until the last 5 minutes. Oh, here's somebody we've never met. She's the killer. This film did go a long way in creating the slasher formula franchise, or helping that along. So it's a very important film. It's just not as good as the other films on this list. So coming in at number 6, Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. A lot of people probably wouldn't put this movie this high. It tends to be not liked by fans of the Friday the 13th franchise, specifically because, and again, spoiler alerts for a movie that's pushing 40 years old, it's not Jason doing the killing, it's a copycat killer. Now, the storyline here was supposed to be Jason's dead, right? Tommy is going to take over that role, but they had to have this film in between to further Tommy's story. That's why he picks up the hockey mask at the end. So in part 6 was supposed to be Tommy doing the killing, and then eventually there would be somebody else, because the creators of the Friday the 13th franchise thought that we wouldn't want to follow the same character through the whole franchise. They were wrong, because people hated this film because it didn't have Jason in it. It was just a copycat killer, despite the fact that until the reboot, this had the best pair of in the franchise, and it also has this great outhouse song. Ooh, baby, ooh, baby, ooh, baby, ooh, baby, ooh, baby.
Hey, baby, hey, baby.
Ooh, baby, ooh, baby, ooh, baby, ooh, baby, ooh, baby. How can you not love that? In the end, it's a guy in a hockey mask killing kids in the woods. Some of them get naked. Some of them die in an outhouse. I quite like the film. It gives me everything that I want out of a Friday the 13th film, even if it isn't Jason doing the killing. Coming in at number 5, a movie that was way better than it had any right to be, Freddy vs. Jason. When these two horror icons finally got together and fought one another, I was not disappointed. I watched this movie twice in the theater. The battle is awesome. The fact that we have Jason killing a bunch of kids, Freddy killing some kids in Freddy ways, those are both awesome. The storyline is better than it probably has any right to be. Somehow they make Jason into a sympathetic character, even though he killed like 13 or 14 people in this film. To the point where I was rooting for Jason in his battle with Freddy Krueger. It was left open-ended. There were supposed to be sequels. I'm disappointed that sequels did not get made. Now we have the top 4. Rounding out the top 4, Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. Jason pretty much had to live because people were so upset about the fact that he was not in Part 5. So they brought him back in Part 6. The manner they brought him back in, I mean, it wasn't great, but what did we expect? A bolt of lightning can do anything in the horror world. I like the characters. I like the setup. This is the only Friday the 13th movie that does not have nudity. It's the only Friday the 13th movie that shows kids.
I think we're dead meat.
It has a decent plot. Tom Matthews, the guy who plays Tommy in this particular film, was adamant to me at one point about the plot of this movie being the best plot in the entire Friday the 13th franchise. I've gotten stuck on an elevator with CJ Graham, who played Jason Voorhees in this particular film. I talk to Sheriff Mike Garris all the time on the Twitter. This movie has a lot of things going for it. That's why it's in the top 4 of the Friday the 13th franchise. Coming in at number 3 is Friday the 13th Part 2. Really, these top 3 can be interchangeable, but I'm putting Part 2 in the third spot only because Jason doesn't have his hockey mask yet. Like, if you're going to show your friend one Friday the 13th film, you're probably not going to show him this one because you're going to want to show him Jason with the hockey mask, walking through the woods, killing teenagers who are getting naked. Other than that, this is a great film. This is everything Friday the 13th should be. And I have no other issues with it. Literally, the hockey mask was the only thing that put this at third from these 3 movies. Coming in at number 2, Friday the 13th Part 3. This is where Jason gets his hockey mask in this particular film. It takes the basic formula that we want out of a Friday the 13th film, and it just adds a little bit more with the bikers, with Shelly, who's kind of our first like comic relief character in the franchise, and also how Jason got his hockey mask. There's a really cool kill with a spear gun. I don't remember how Jason got a spear gun, but he got one. It was in 3D, come right at the screen. Some poor girl's eye got torn out by the freaking spear gun. And that's why Friday the 13th Part 3 is in the number 2 spot. And if you're a fan of the Friday the 13th franchise and you saw the title of this particular show, you probably already guessed what number 1 was going to be. It's generally considered the best Friday the 13th movie, and that's for a reason. Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter. This is where we're introduced to Tommy Jarvis, which becomes Jason's like number 1 enemy. He has a 3-film arc and then goes on into some Freddy vs. Jason comic books to be a big player in those. Jason does what Jason does. He kills the girl from Weird Science while she's naked on a raft out in the middle of the lake. There are twins. There's Crispin Glover dancing weird, but that gets him laid. But then he gets a corkscrew put into his hand and he gets his head sliced in half. That happens sometimes. As I said earlier in the video, this was supposed to be the actual death of Jason Voorhees at the hands of Tommy Jarvis, and it was supposed to start the Tommy Jarvis becoming a killer arc. But a lot of good things are happening in this movie. The only like bad point I can really think of is the death of Rob, which was pretty weak in the dark. He's killing me. That's the only low point in this entire film. It's a great film and probably the quintessential Friday the 13th film. And that's why it ranks as number 1 in our ranking of the 12 Friday the 13th Jason Voorhees movies. So that's our list for this particular episode of The List Show. If you haven't already, subscribe, hit the like button, smash something, the notification bell, share, subscribe. You guys know how YouTube works.